What is the worst thing you've overheard while pretending to be asleep? My older brother in the next room when he snuck a girl in. They had sex for about a minute and then I could hear him apologizing for about 20. May not be the worst ever, but it's definitely the funniest. My friends talking about going into my wallet later and steal my money, and then leave before I notice. I kicked them out. Some friends, Roomful of people talking about how they didn't like me. Included friends and family members. This happened to my dad. He and my mom were getting a friendly divorce. And he was about to walk into her mother's kitchen when he heard everyone around the table saying awful things about him. He left before they could see him, and told me later it felt awful. But he was closer to my mom's family than he was to his own. And he remembered that anytime you're close to people, there are things about them that irritate you and sometimes you talk about those things. So he put it out of his mind and carried on. Despite the divorce, my mom's side of the family loves my dad, they consider him family still. 40 years later, he died this week. And my mom came out. Her brothers both drove long ways to sit outside his window. And both my aunts were in floods of tears. And he was the only person in my grandmother's will besides her kids. Sometimes people talk shit. It doesn't mean they don't love you. My mom and aunt talking. Thinking 10-year-old me was asleep. And little runs _ goses is so cute. Mom. No. He's not very good looking at all. Had the same experience. But the difference was that I wasn't asleep and my mom said that in front of me. While maintaining direct eye contact to you. Followed by my aunt starting at her and a long silence. That I was dying with meningitis, but jokes on the doctors, I'm still kicking. You ever live just to flex on the haters? Yeah, did it to the same doctor twice now. Third time lucky. Might be time to consider a different doctor, my man. I dunno. They've got an excellent record of living with this doctor. Seems like a streak to keep going. When I was around 8 years old I was supposed to be asleep, but I snuck downstairs to get milk or something. I heard talking going on downstairs, so I stood still and listened. My mom was talking to my brother about how much of a problem I was and how she hated me. She always liked my brother more. I just silently crept back upstairs and cried myself to sleep. Good times. Hope you're doing okay. That's really terrible. I was in trade school in a different city than my hometown. So I was staying at my in-laws' home. My wife's dad was away for the weekend and I noticed her mom was wearing fancy dresses. She's a very beautiful woman, often mistaken for my wife's sister. She also seemed extra giddy before she would go out for the evenings. On the evening my father-in-law got home. I was in my room studying when I heard him yell at the top of his lungs, "So you F the guy." I can only assume she felt guilty and told him since it was soon after he go home. Anyways, he was yelling at her for most of the night and I heard lots of crying from both of them. I heard some pretty terrible things. They are both very nice people and it was sad to hear them on their worst night. They've stayed together and it looks like they are fighting to make their marriage work. My father-in-law was very cold, distant, and angry for a couple of years. But they seemed to be warm towards each other again. Also, the following morning they apologized for all the noise they made and I told them I was just listening to music. Did you tell your wife about this? I did tell her. It was really hard for her to hear. But we've always tried our best to be honest about everything with each other. If anything, I think it made us cherish what we have. It's pretty amazing what some marriages can survive. I'm glad they're working it out though. Sleeping over at a friend's house when I was 14. All of us on the floor in living room. Couldn't sleep. Two of my friends, guy and girl, directly next to me start doing freaky things to each other. I was extremely shy and a couple of years younger than them, so I stayed quiet and hoped they'd stop. Had to listen to them for an hour while she made weird ass moaning squeaky noises and he was singing, in a weird slightly whispery singy voice, Matchbox 20 songs to her while he did whatever he was doing. That was last time I slept over at a friend's house. Old roommates planning to kick me out. Did they do it? Yep, edit. Thanks for awards. This is the first time I ever got an award in my life. Now what? Squandered your advantage. Should have used your secret knowledge to get the drop on them and kick them out first. I'm not fired. You're fired. When I was a wee tot, I pretended to be asleep in the family room so I wouldn't have to actually go to bed, and once my parents were distracted, I could keep watching TV. I then got to hear my dad proposition my mom for couch sex. It's been many years so I don't remember exactly what he said. But it was something along the lines of hop on pop. Haha, OMG, that's horrifying. That's fucking hilarious. Isn't that a book by Dr. Seuss? Hop on pop? Hop on pop. It won't hurt a bit. Open your legs and try and sit. Sit. She said. Okay, I'll try. But maybe first unzip your fly. I can't wait to read that to my kids. Before I got divorced, was laying in bed late, 11 a.m. or so, on my day off. After a long string of I think 10 or so work days in a row. My ex, who refused to get a job, was in the next room playing a video game. And I heard him say that motherfucking bitch is still sleeping. The motherfucking bitch paying all the bills so you can sit on your ass 24/7? Yikes. Glad you got out of there. Right? If my wife let me do that, you bet your ass I would be doing every house chore so she was satisfied. My mom trying to calm my dad down out of a suicidal fit. My brother and I had been really bad that day, and when he grounded us, we both told him that we hated him and wanted him to go away. He didn't do anything wrong. My brother and I were just a couple of immature little cunts. I'm pretty sure blackout drunk at this point, which I had never seen and still haven't saw since that night, walked into our room that night and I pretended to fall asleep. Then he just started these deep, haunting sobs that I'll probably never forget. He stumbled outside and we could hear him begging my mom to let him die and sobbing, all I've ever wanted in my entire life was to be a better dad than mine. I was only 11 or so, but it fucking destroyed my heart. I think that's the time I learned that emotional pain can actually physically hurt. I was hunched over in my bed bawling my eyes out and on the verge of throwing up. I also felt like an asshole for crying over what we said. My brother was thankfully able to sleep through it all. I think about that once every 2 weeks or so, and I always message him to tell him I love him when I do. I hope he forgot about it. But being a dad myself now, I don't think it's something you totally forget. It might not hurt like it did in the moment, but I don't think you forget. Like most heartbreaking things, I guess. Well, this made me cry. I lost my dad 2 years ago and I acted like a total cunt to him when I was a teenager. I hate myself and my teenage years. Find the memories that don't hurt, and try to keep them circulating whenever you remember your old man. My parents discussing whether or not I was gay, and exploring where they went wrong with raising me. Too many hugs. My mom once asked me if I was depressed because she didn't give me enough hugs. Edit. I think it's funny/sad that my highest rated comment is about my mom trying to make my carefully written, tear-filled depression confession about her. Sounds like a caring mother. My walls were thin. I could hear almost anything. My parents argued in what they thought was a quiet voice about divorce. Then my dad says you can keep the kid. He annoys the F at and dollar out of me. The next week they told me and signed the papers. I think it is under discussed how much divorce stems from one of the parties just really not wanting to fucking parent. Like people don't say that out loud. But now that I'm an age where my own peers are getting divorced. Truly a lot of it is people. Mostly dudes but not exclusively. Who are just tired of having responsibilities. I hope you weren't forced to be around him much. It gets interesting when they then fight for custody not because they want to parent the kid, but out of spite. There are no winners. My family were staying at a friend's house and had to share a room. My dad comes to bed hammered and says to my mum something along the lines of, "Does it impress you that I'm this drunk and can still perform?" I actually wanted to die. While reading this gave me bystander desire for death. Glad you made it through that one. The fight isn't over. Friend. He still has to struggle with the afterblow. That's a pretty big load to handle. Roommate getting a blowjob. The worst part was when I heard him say, "I'm gonna come." Legit wanted to die. At least he was courteous enough to inform his partner of his forthcoming nut. Yeah, but then the midnut moans. I still wake up in the middle of the night, soaked in sweat with the sound of those ringing in my ear. My mom having an affair with her fiancé's best friend, who was married. In the same room that I was sleeping in. I was like 10 years old. Edit, spelling. Damn. Can't imagine that. Did that affect your relationship with her? My then stepmom's nephews talking about what they would do to me sexually if given the chance. I was 14. They were 17, 19 and 21. Thankfully the window to the motorhome was slightly open. And my dad heard the entire thing. I was scared of boys for a long time after that. That's awful. Unfortunately, I was at the perfect age and stage of my life that it messed me up for a while. Had I been younger, I wouldn't have understood what they meant. Had I been older, I would have been better equipped to understand that all males were not like this. Thankfully, their marriage imploded shortly after. Turns out that essentially their entire family were shitbags. No wonder people at school think he's gay. My stepmom. My stepdad thought I was gay from the ages 16 to 19 based on the fact when I got my driver's license I wasn't out 24/7 chasing tail. I had people at my old job thinking I was a closeted gay because I didn't try to date or get laid with random women. Some people just have low sex drives. You know. But no. It's like there's two sexual orientations, fuck everything that moves. And gay. Or you know. Standards. Not me. But my wife heard her boyfriend having sex with her best friend. This was obviously long before we met. I was about to say WTF. They had us in the first half NGL. My sister's soon-to-be fiancé wanking while saying her name. At least he wasn't saying someone else's name. Solid commitment to wank over your partner. This is a case of next to everything else in this thread. This looks positively heartwarming. Who knew a proper wank could show such integrity? My mom being raped by her abusive husband. It was on a bunk bed and me and my brother were on the top bunk silently crying. I don't talk about it much but it sticks with me. Damn. Hope you're doing okay. Not my place to give advice. But having someone to tell trauma like that to out loud helps a lot, therapists/friends. I was a camp counselor. Two girls very much liked to make hot or not lists. One of them suggested a male counselor was hot. And the other said he was saying mean things about me behind my back. Which made him not hot. Hurt to hear that from my campers. But glad they supported me. What, that's actually sweet. Good on them. Yeah. I know some kids are lil shits but I appreciated them. My roommate and her FWB having loud, dirty talk sex. I just had my wisdom teeth out and I think they assumed I was passed out on pain meds. I play Payday 2 too much. Read FWB as First World Bank. I would have been less disturbed if it was something like that. Something like she's too old for this. I'm not going to carry her up to bed anymore. And that was the last time I was magically transported from the living room couch to my bedroom. This is so sad. My son is nearly 13 and was 11 when I was last able to pick him up. When I did, I nearly threw my back out and realized this would be the last time I would be able to carry him. I ended up sitting in his bed crying. I can still carry my daughter, 6, at least. Edit, just want to say thank you for my first 2 awards. And for all the lovely words and stories. Didn't expect this to blow up like it did. Trying to read all the replies. But it's the middle of a Sunday afternoon in Australia and playing Uno with my daughter.